The Dallas Stars are back in the Western Conference Finals after eliminating the Winnipeg Jets. Joey Erickson of Locked On Stars is here to talk about the series win and what it'll take to get to the Stanley Cup Final. All that and more on today's Locked On NHL Podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL Podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. It is great to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Stars, Joey Erickson. And Joey, how is the team feeling after that exciting overtime win over the Winnipeg Jets?
Well, they should be pretty confident, and I think that was echoed throughout the locker room following the Game 6 win. A tough series. Of course, Winnipeg was the President's Trophy winners, and they showed it a few times in the series, but you have to give Dallas some credit. They bounced back after each loss, and they finished off a Jets team that played their best game on the road in the postseason, and Dallas was able to come out on top. They finish it on the power play, and that's sort of been their calling card this postseason so far. Timely saves, timely goals, and you can win a lot of games this time of year doing that, especially when Jake Ottinger has been as superb as he has been in between the pipes.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ottinger was one of the difference makers in this series where Connor Hellebuck was kind of up and down, but Ottinger was consistently either really, really good or even better than that.
Correct. Hellebuck sort of figured it out finally, but maybe it was too late for him in the Jets, unfortunately for Winnipeg. But Jake has just been so darn good for Dallas. He's faced the most shots so far in the postseason. He's made the most saves, and he has a save percentage at .919. I think the goals against is 2.47. Like that's really good. But it's those types of saves he's making. Had a huge one on Connor in the 1-1 hockey game in the second period, and he made it look easy. And of course, the sprawling save against Appleton late in regulation, not how he would have drawn it up. It's probably a goaltender coach's worst nightmare, seeing the way he was sort of facing the net, but he did that a couple of times in the series, and he got the job done. And yeah, he was just a skosh better in this series than the best goaltender in the world over the past few seasons.
You mentioned special teams. Talk to me about the importance they played in this series win over the Jets.
Well, their PK has been brilliant. It's 86%. I think they only gave up one power play goal in the entire series. Maybe it was two, but it wasn't much. They have just been lights out, and that goes back to the Colorado series as well. And they gave up 3 against a very talented Colorado team. The power play is the best power play out of all the teams left. It's at 30%. And McGranlund, of course, had a couple of goals in his hat-trick game. And then they finish it off in early in overtime in Game 6. And that's something Dallas didn't have a ton of last season. But it is something that if it carries over into Edmonton, they should be okay. But it's been massive. And I know we talk about the cliches all the time with special teams, goaltending, you got to get depth scoring and all that. Stars have done that to some degree at different points in the series. But it's nice to have a power play that works. It can dig you out of a lot of trouble. And their power play their penalty kill has gotten them out of a lot of trouble because they've taken some very dumb penalties. I hate to use that adjective, but they've just taken some pretty wonky penalties at times. And a Winnipeg team that made a lot of teams pay pretty much the entire season, and it dried up on them in this series.
Talk to me about Thomas Harley, because Peter DeBoer singled him out for praise after the game. What did he contribute besides obviously the game-winning goal in overtime?
Well, he's been just incredible, and I said it after the game. It just almost felt right that he deserved to score the overtime winner. He has a clutch gene. He has 6 overtime goals over the last 3 seasons. That's the most out of any defenseman, and that includes the regular season. So I know 3-on-3 isn't anything special, but that was obviously a big time goal. But it's just the amount he's grown. He has really improved on the defensive side of things too. And one thing that I found really fascinating was a couple of games ago. I think it was after Game 4 when the Stars won. He mentioned if he's doing good on the defensive side of things, like that's all he cares about. And I don't know if that's something you would have heard a few years ago out of somebody like Thomas Harley. You expect more of that from Miro Heiskanen, the other Stars' number 1 defenseman. I think that just shows the level of maturity he has now, because he is a stud defensively. And he can score. And he took over the number 1 power play unit for Dallas under once Miro Heiskanen went down. And now it's nice that they have both. Imagine Miro Heiskanen's your number 2 quarterback on the power play. Like, you're living right if you're Dallas. And now that they have both of them back fully healthy, it looks like Miro, they're letting the gunners off, so to speak. They're letting him go. That is great news. But Harley's been the MVP for Dallas all season long, assuming that responsibility, playing heavy minutes. It's nice Miro's back to give him a bit of a rest every once in a while.
Edmonton Oilers up next, another tough opponent, another challenge. What concerns you most about facing the Edmonton Oilers?
Yeah, well, last season I felt very confident going into that series, and Edmonton, I think, humbled me and other Stars fans. I'm more anxious heading into this season for sure, because I felt like Edmonton certainly got better over the offseason. They may have not shown it during the regular season. I mean, they still had over 100 points, but they have really turned it on. I guess what concerns me from a Stars perspective, if Stuart Skinner shows up and he figures it out like he did last year, and he wasn't great early in the series, but from games 4 to 7, he was lights out. And if he finds his game again, like, that's always going to be tough. Also, I think it's depth scoring for Dallas. We've talked a lot about Mikko Rantanen, and he's sort of carried the load, but there's a lot of other Stars that haven't factored in. Jason Robertson without a goal, Matt Duchene without a goal, Marchment has 1 goal. There's a lot of the depth that of course the Stars boast, and we talk about. It's nice to have Wyatt Johnston be your third line center. It's nice to have Jamie Benn as your third line winger or whatever, but if they're not producing, it really doesn't matter. And against an Edmonton team that is deep, and they're getting production from not just 97 and Draisaitl, this is a different question than it maybe was even a year ago, although it was the depth for Edmonton that really showed out for the Oilers in that other series. But the thing that really sticks out to me, I actually wrote these down today. You look at the power play numbers last season in that series, Dallas went 0 for 14. And the Edmonton scored 4 power play goals in the series. The 5-on-5 goals, 4 for Dallas, 14, 13 against. So they outscored them at 5-on-5, but it was the special teams that really mattered and what really dried up for Dallas. So if they can rectify that and get some help from some of the depth pieces, I think they'll be fine.
How do you think the Stars try to address McDavid and Draisaitl?
Well, I think it's kind of a 2-part question in a way. Are they going to play together? That's always a question. I know Knobloch likes to kind of pump them together or put them together if they feel like they need to kind of create some offense. But what they have to try to match, they're going to get a heavy dose of 4 and 55, I would suspect. Harley and Heiskanen are going to take a lot of those minutes. And I think the approach for Dallas is you try to contain them as much as possible, but you got to win the other matchups. And that sort of goes back to the depth. Can you win some of the other matchups against the bottom 6? Can you win some of the matchups against a Klingberg or against a Darnell Nurse? And if they're able to do that, they could be in good hands, but it's going to be a tough task. There's both of these teams talent-wise, probably the deepest in the Western Conference, and it's going to be a battle, and I'm looking forward to seeing it take place over the 7-game series.
We all are. Joey, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find us Locked On Stars on YouTube, of course. You can find us on all your podcast listening devices and softwares. Of course, you can find me at JoeyTheJet19 on Twitter. Locked On Stars as well on X and all that good stuff to follow along. And appreciate you, Gil, for having me on. And it's going to be an exciting conference final next few weeks.
No doubt. Thank you very much, Joey. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You could track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you could stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.